Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Late night Carlos here, not quite 3 a.m. Carlos, but close. Pretty late, regardless that I'm recording this. So I'm recording this after the Game 2 World Series. I actually went out to the pub for this one. I kind of mentioned that during the live stream, and I decided to take myself up on it. And I'll say this, by the time you're watching this, the outcome is already known, and it was disappointing. I don't want to talk about it. I will talk about it more during the podcast episode, though, because it was an interesting experience. Regardless, it was a fun experience. I am happy I did it, and I'll chat about it more on Tuesday. That said, though, since the pub is located maybe about a 20-minute walk from where I am, it actually gave me the opportunity on the way back. It is getting chilly. Now we're at the chilly part of the season. It did give me a chance on the way back to have a time of sober reflection as I briskly strolled back to get home. And when I did, I decided not to think about the game because I'd rather not think about such unpleasantries. But regardless, I was thinking about some other things, and one of the things I was thinking about, actually, was during the live stream, we were watching one of the Modano Shield cards that I had made reference to. And it was something that was part of a bounty from GP Sports that we had talked about during the podcast episode and everything, and we had to follow up during the Friday live stream. Obviously, it was a bit of a World Series Game 1 watch-along, which actually went pretty well. I was pretty happy with that. And then as part of it, we were watching the result of that specific patch card. And what was interesting is that the result was very surprising. I got a chance for a couple of minutes to talk about it during the live stream, but I kind of want to talk about it a little bit more now that I've had some chance to really sit with it and think about it a little bit more. Again, I also had a brisk walk to think about it some more. And now having had the chance to do that, I'm still stuck at where I was on Friday. And that is, I'm still trying to get my head around the idea. And let me explain kind of what the concept is. And real quick, I'll just show you here. So obviously there's the card, obviously the glare. I'll put it on the screen anyway, just so you can see what I'm referring to. It is a very nice card. I did make mention during the live stream and podcast and everything related to it, is that it's a card that I would happily have in my collection. But when GP Sports did a bounty, and I'm going to get back to the bounty thing in a minute, that's part of the reason I was thinking about this a little bit. When they released that bounty for it, they put $7,000 Canadian as a bounty for the Mike Modano card, which translates roughly to about $5,000 US currently at the time of recording. And part of the reason that struck me is that I was thinking to comps that I had been able to put together recently for it. There have been several different Shield cards. There were a handful during the Panini era, and then obviously during the Cup and Ultimate. There are some different ones that have been out there. UD Premier had a Shield card that was out there at different times, but a lot of that stuff was years ago. But even the more recent ones, and slowly there has been an escalation. So part of the reason that I was thinking about this is there has been an escalation. So I was trying to decide is this just a natural movement as, you know, the prices have escalated upwards? Because there was a time where you could buy those comfortably under $1,000. So just starting as a starting point, you had a time where you could buy them as a baseline of under $1,000. And then as the pandemic period went, these prices started to escalate and escalate. We cracked the $1,000 USD barrier, and then you just kept going. And then they reached a certain point where there were some Modano collectors who kind of traded them amongst themselves and different collectors that in order to get them in their collections. And as kind of a follow-up to this, I'm kind of inclined to inquire with them. I'm going to probably reach out and just ask them some thoughts on this because I'd be curious to see what they think about it, given that they've made some deals with it, especially those ones that have made some of those private deals and purchases. But slowly the price has crept up. And the only real price prior to this that I can validate was maybe about $2,300 USD, which already for me is super high, in my opinion. But again, I'll talk about where that bounty, I think, makes things really interesting and kind of the way it worked out. So regardless, this is a new card. So a new card from 24-25 Ultimate, new series, but it is a game-used piece of the Shield with an autograph, which again has been done a couple different times. But regardless, it's the newest iteration of it. And when you're looking at it on paper, it feels like it should fall almost in line with it. But then you introduce this bounty. And now I'm going to get back to the bounty piece. So when GP Sports Card introduces this bounty, what effectively they've done is they've created kind of a new kind of a reference or anchor point on everything else. And the question that I kind of had leading after I saw that was, how is this going to impact it? Now, luckily in this case, we got to watch it play out in real time because somebody actually pulled the card, turned down the deal, which was surprising, and they decided to go and auction it off themselves. Now, with that said, I do want to kind of reference this as well, is that even while we were looking at it on the Friday live stream, we saw some low feedback bidders with bids that were kind of questionable, and I kind of called shenanigans on a lot of that. The end result, though, was that there was some bidding activity right at the end. There was a big surge at the end that got it to just shy of $9,100. Now that in itself was very shocking because you're talking about $9,100, almost $9,100 USD, which is multiples of what it had been for some of the other examples previous to that. And you're doing this all at once. And again, you have all kind of that shady bidding history involved in it. But then the exclamation point in the whole thing was that even during the live stream, we were able to confirm that it was showing on Terry Peak as having been paid for. So not only did somebody bid maybe 4 times higher than any other example that I had seen, but on top of everything else, they paid for it almost immediately. So now we're back to kind of the question of, okay, so let's take it at face value. Let's say that is in fact the reality. So somebody decided that suddenly, for some bizarre reason, that card is now worth $9,100 or near in, close enough that makes no difference, which is a multiple of almost 4 times what the previous version was. I can't help but think that the bounty kind of created this new concept in somebody's head. I can't help but think that all of a sudden it created the idea, well, if someone's willing to pay this, then maybe it could be worth that. That's where I guess the intention behind the winning bidder kind of becomes really interesting. Is it a situation where it's just somebody who's wanted it for their PC and they were just willing to pay any price? Or is it a case of somebody that decided they wanted to hold it as part of a collection with other things? Or is it a case of someone thinking somehow that there is another bidder out there who's willing to pay even more? The intention really becomes the main kind of focus point. And it's one of those things where I just kind of sit there and I look at it and I go, I'm just not sure what to make of this. I'm not sure what to think about it. But even with that additional reflection, I'm back to what I kind of said during the live stream, is that it's not worth that to me. It doesn't matter that, I guess, somebody else was willing to go to those lengths in order to get it in their hands. It doesn't suddenly change what I think about as far as the value or price point on a lot of the collection stuff that I do. This is kind of thematically appropriate, though, leading into the next couple of weeks, because we're going to head over to the Fall Expo, the Toronto Fall Expo. And obviously it is a hockey-heavy show, even though it's not hockey exclusive. There is going to be other stuff there. But whenever I go there, I'm trying to find a couple of other Mike Modano cards that I'm going to add to the collection. But I'm kind of sitting there trying to figure out then, okay, I don't think it's going to affect some of these other ones immediately. But it's one of those things where it does have kind of an impact. It does have kind of an effect. Where the next time there is a kind of a grail-worthy level card like that, what do people get in their heads as far as what the value is? It always becomes a bit of a challenge when you've got these dealers that sometimes have this kind of inflated idea of what the price point should be versus what I as the collector are looking at and going like, okay, look, I try to wipe away the idea because it's one of those biases that you kind of get stuck with, because if you've been collecting anything long enough, you've also bought these things at a much lower price point, or similar kind of things at a lower price point, so you become kind of cheap in that way. You decide like, oh, I was buying that for $100 or $200 or whatever, and it was like 10 years ago. So you have to take into account that certain things have gone up. But then there are other things though, like this, where I'm just not sure I understand how we got there. I'm not sure how we understand how we got from point A to point B to C to D to get from. There was a time where I could have bought one of the nicer Shield cards had I been able to just make the purchase for $1,000, and suddenly now we've got this card that in open auction cleared over 9 times that amount. Again, they're 2 different cards in this case. Arguably though, I would rather have that $1,000 one from some years back versus this $9,000 one. But obviously, just based on the auction results, somebody else thought the opposite. Somebody else was willing to pay a multiple. So I guess it would be a question of like, so what would these other ones go for if they went in the open market today? And that was kind of the thing that kind of struck me as a little bit odd. Now really quick, since I'm doing this video late anyway, I figure I'd grab this since I've still got the box within arm's reach. I showed it during the live stream, but maybe we'll showcase it here again. This is actually a card that I had shown previously. It was from 2019-2020. It's Leaf Ultimate Hockey. So this is an unlicensed card of Modano, but kind of showing it there. So let's see if I can show that to you. So that is also a copy of a Shield card. So that is an example of a game use Shield with an autograph on there. It is a sticker auto. 1/1 Shield card included in there. And it's just kind of interesting that obviously, unlicensed, this is going to cost a lot less in terms of that. But I guess my question would be, how much less? At the time, it was very clear that it should be worth, substantially less. I ended up paying, I think it was $400 at the time. And, I was comfortable paying that, and it was fine. And for me, it was just an opportunity to have what I thought was a nice card. And it's kind of a centerpiece to kind of the collection. The whole Shield thing became kind of a centerpiece for the hockey card side of things. If you collect a player, you try to have, if you can have certain centerpiece cards, and the Shield oftentimes can be one of those. And it's one of those things where we were having the discussion during the live stream and everything, but all these players wear all these uniforms and everything, but even then, the amount of Shield cards that are out there is still relatively low comparatively to these other things. Now, there are some players that certainly have more of them, and the modern player will probably have more opportunities to have more of them as you go forward, but also the price on those jerseys has also escalated appropriately. So it's one of those things where it's not like it gets cheaper in order to get these pieces that you're going to include in those. So the amount of these Shield cards is still very finite relative to the amount of potential demand for it. That's part of the reason the price has gone up so much. But I guess what I'm getting at as part of this whole diatribe is that I am trying as a collector to reconcile myself with the inflation in the value of a very specific type of collectible that fits into the whole ecosystem of my collecting, while at the same time accepting that I'm priced out of it. It's one of those things where, like, even if the money was there, even if I suddenly wake up tomorrow, I win a lottery and I have this money, I'm looking at that card, the example that I've been talking about during this entire conversation. I'm not willing to pay that price. It's not so much a matter of whether I have it or not. And this goes back to kind of the underlying idea that a lot of people have. They always talk about it as like, something is only worth what someone's willing to pay for it, which in general terms I agree with. It's not wrong. But I guess what it comes down to is, though, what somebody's willing to pay for it, though, changes depending on the person. Somebody with a more modest budget is only willing to pay a certain amount. And then somebody with substantially bigger budget would be willing to pay a much larger amount. It comes down to desire. Does that person with the larger budget want to buy that thing? If the answer is yes, well, then they're always going to outbid. They're going to crush the person who may be very passionate and may want this thing. And they're just not going to be able to afford it. Kind of the analogy here that kind of fits the situation is in the live stream we were talking about the whole thing with the World Series, and we talked about, I did the video where I talked about my Jays fandom and kind of my history with the team and everything, and kind of appreciating, and even again, like I said, with the result of it, as annoyed as I was at the result tonight that I was recording this video, I still enjoyed that now we've had 2 World Series games in Toronto, and I got a chance to watch both of them, and they won the game and they lost the game, and they're going to go to Los Angeles and they're going to play 3 games. So no matter what happens, they're going to play 3 games. Hopefully, cross our fingers, they can win a game or 2. And if that's the case, we'll drive it back to Toronto, and that would be interesting to see, and then we'll see what happens from there. But regardless, they have made it to there, and they did win a game. So it's one of those things where I got a chance to see that, in the HD era, so to speak. So that's something you can't take away, and that's something that I am enjoying. But even then, when we were talking about it, we had the 2 games in Toronto, and both of those games, the tickets became, in reselling and everything, the price became exorbitant. It has been priced out of what the average person would be able to afford. And it goes back to what I just said a moment ago. The reason I'm connecting these 2 things is that the experience of being there and getting a chance to see my team play would be an interesting or enjoyable experience potentially. And again, win or lose, at least being there and there, experiencing that kind of thing. That's part of the reason I went to the pub tonight, is that I just wanted to be there, surrounded by some of the people who are also fixated and focusing on this game, just to get a little bit of a sense of that atmosphere, the ambiance. And again, I'll talk about it more during the podcast. I did get a sense of it, but it was kind of fun kind of seeing how it kind of played out. But regardless, it gives you kind of a taste of it, at least from a distance. But obviously in the stadium, it's a completely different beast, the whole thing, in terms of the experience that you're going to get from it. But in this case, you are paying a premium for it, like a substantial premium. And it's kind of just hard to get past that idea, because even if the money's there, especially looking at the resale price, clearing north of $2,000, I'm just not sure that I would. And I was having kind of a side conversation after the live stream with Bobby, where we were kind of talking around that general idea where, if it was like a game 6 or game 7 or the right situation or whatever, he thinks that he would potentially pony up the money. And I'm still standing kind of behind the idea that even if I'm sitting on a pile of money, so much money that I don't know what to do with it. All of Eric's like money comes in all at once. We're all set. I'm still not doing it. It's just not worth that to me. I value other things that I could spend that money on. That's what it comes down to. It's what are you willing, how far are you willing to go? In this case, for an experience, but in the other case, for an item for the collection. How far are you willing to go? How far are you willing to extend? Even if it's within your budget, even if it's not going to hinder anything else. All the other bills are going to get paid. Everything else is perfectly fine. Are you willing to go to a limitless level? Some people are. And other people would probably think, oh man, for that, well, I could do this thing, or I could do this thing, or I could buy this thing, and all these other possibilities are suddenly in play. And I guess that's the piece you have to kind of figure out. That's the part you have to make fit the situation. And for the World Series tickets, they had priced themselves out of that situation. And for the Shield card, we are now, again, priced out of the situation. In this case, it's more of an exclamation point. I was already priced out of that situation, and now it's priced out with a little bit of more emphasis, a little bit more flourish with an exclamation point at the end of it. So I guess all this is to say that I was trying to really get my head around the idea that I guess I already knew that I was kind of priced out of that segment of it, but nonetheless, like, really been emphasized based on the result of that auction. And I guess I'm also morbidly curious. Like, I'm genuinely would love to know what exactly who this person is who purchased this, what their intentions are, what they plan on doing with it, and, whether it's collection or whether it's resale or whether it's just housing in a museum, I guess. I don't know. Whatever it is, I would just love to know. I would love to know what that is, because I don't, even with all this discussion, even with this thought process that I'm laying out for you, I'm just at a loss and I don't understand. And I'm still left thinking that in some way, the bounty that was positioned in front of it kind of created this idea where you almost you planted the seed in people's minds that it could suddenly be at this price point, even though it had never been at that price point as far as I'm aware. Like, I haven't seen or heard anything that comes anywhere close. And then all of a sudden, here we are. And now, having had that occur and having, again, Therapy confirmed that it was paid, so what comes next? The next time that one of these things becomes available, where do we go from here? And that's kind of the next question that kind of becomes interesting and kind of comes into play. Now, GP Sports also put bounties on a few other players, a few other characters. So now I will be curious also to see, do any of these other ones also surpass the actual bounty total? Does the rising tide raise all the boats now? Did you plant the seed in people's minds for a couple of these other ones as well? And does that push those prices up, which in turn pushes the next set of prices up, which, it just is a self-fulfilling prophecy as you go forward. Just some thoughts and some things that I was thinking about, and it's just, I've had a day to think about it, and I'm still not sure where I sit, or really where I'm thinking that this all fits. But anyway, like I said, late evening ramblings, some thoughts that I was having as kind of I was walking back, and then now I've had the chance to sit here and think about it a little bit more, and I'm still kind of at a loss as to where things sit right now. But regardless, we're going to have some fun in the next couple of weeks here, coming up at the Toronto Expo. I usually come away with something, so I will probably find something for the collection, but it probably won't be the super high-end stuff. We'll probably lay off that, especially if these people are getting that aggressive. This kind of price point makes any sense to anybody else. That said, though, I will at least make an attempt to reach out to some of those other Modano collectors, because I'd be curious to see what their take is on this. Because I think that might be illustrative to see where kind of people are sitting on it, at least the people that collect that I'm familiar with from that perspective. That said, though, more videos coming up on the channel. Live streams on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the longest running episodic, whatever it is. Next video that'll come up on the channel will actually be the podcast episode, which will drop on the Tuesday. I actually probably should make a pickup video, but look, I already showed it on the live stream, and here it is again. I'll take a picture of it and include it on the Instagram. It's a nice card. It's from 2011, 2012. This is the Crown Royale Royal Lineage, and it's the Prime version, numbered to 50. It's Mike Modano, Jamie Benn, and Brendan Morrow. So 3 eventually captains of the Dallas Stars. So a nice card to add to the collection. There's a jersey version, there's the Prime version, and then there's the patch version, which is numbered to 25. So that is a new addition to the collection. Yeah, I wasn't going to bother with it, but now since I'm talking about it here at the end, I'll do it. Updated Modano count, 2,815 different Mike Modano cards, 368 autographs, and we are now at 700 memorabilia cards. So we've added that one to the collection, hit another little mini milestone. And like I said, the next video that I do on the channel will be the podcast episode. And then if I think of anything else, maybe I'll throw something in there. But regardless, we'll have the next live stream will be on Friday, and it will be on Halloween. So it will be officially a spooktacular. It fits a little theme, so maybe I'll throw something in there, a little bit of fun, maybe on the overlay or something else. We'll have a little bit of fun with it, at least compared to the normal Friday night shenanigans. That's it for this one. Like I said, more videos coming up on the channel. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you in the next one.